Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're joining us from, and welcome to another session of Learn with Links. It's fantastic to see so many of you with us today from across the globe. I can already spot a few familiar names in the attendee list, so welcome back and thank you for continuing to learn with us. For those of you who I haven't met before, my name is Holly and I'm part of the marketing team here at Links. If this is your first Learn with Links session, a very warm welcome. This series is our free virtual educational programme where we bring together industry experts to share knowledge, practical insights, and real world experiences across a wide range of technical topics. Over the years, we've explored subjects such as Wireshark, DNS, BGP, IPv6, Internet Exchange fundamentals, and even how to get the most out of your Links portal. If you've missed any of our previous sessions, they're all available to watch on our YouTube channel. Simply search for @Links Network. Today's session will also be recorded and we'll share the replay on our YouTube shortly after the webinar concludes. Now, in just a moment, I'll be handing over to today's expert, Mike Hellers, who will be guiding us through today's map session. But before I do, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. This is a webinar format, so if you have any questions throughout the session, please use the Q&A function in your Zoom toolbar. I'll be monitoring these submissions and will share your questions with Mike at the end. We're always looking to deliver sessions that bring real value to the community. If there's a topic you'd like us to cover in the future, we'd generally love to hear from you. You can email us at marketing@links.net or drop your suggestions into the chat today. Your ideas often inspire future sessions. With that, I'll step aside and hand over to Mike to get us started. Enjoy your session.
Thank you, Holly, and welcome everybody. Thanks for spending the next half hour with us here, and hopefully you learn something new about maps, or if not, it might just be a refresher of what you already know. Let me just share my slides. There we go. So yes, this as the title says, this is all about maps. Some of you looking through the list of attendees might know already all about it. For others, it might be something new. Hopefully, there is a little bit in there for everybody. Let's start with the very basic. What is it? So if you look at the Microsoft website, Microsoft describes it the following, as you can see on the screen. It really makes it sound like it's something very special. It's a networking service that enhances connectivity. Sounds all very good. And there's nothing wrong in there. All is correct, and the focus clearly is on connectivity to Microsoft platform, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, or any of the other software as a service platforms that Microsoft is offering on the public internet. What it is in reality, it just gives you direct peering with Microsoft's AS8075, which is Microsoft's public-facing, internet-facing AS number. That's where the public-facing service that they offer live. If you're having a Teams call, it will use connectivity to 8075. So is this ExpressRoute? No, this is not ExpressRoute. So Microsoft has they have multiple ASNs. The two main ASNs is 8075, which is the one that we're talking about today. They're peering their internet-facing AS number, and 12076, which is the AS number that's used for all of their Azure services, i.e. if you're hosting your compute platform or your storage or any of the Azure tools. That's where ExpressRoute comes into play. So ExpressRoute is a different service, which Links can also help you with, that gives you a private connection within the Microsoft Azure platform. Maps is the public-facing side. There is an if you're using ExpressRoute, you can also get Microsoft peering as a second VLAN through ExpressRoute, but the pricing is slightly different there. And technically it works slightly different. So this is it is as simple as it could be. It gives you direct peering with 8075. And this is pretty much all I've said already. A summary of that. Expressful prefixes, you will not hear them through maps. You're not allowed to announce them through maps. Microsoft will reject those through maps. So this is purely 8075 that we're talking about here. One main important point that I mentioned here, since it kind of applies to all of these scenarios, and it's the way Microsoft handles the return pass back to you. If you're using maps versus regular internet connectivity, regular peering, it's what very technical term called potato routing means. So normally, if there's traffic from Microsoft, from their public-facing internet back to any location, Microsoft will use the nearest exit point to where the content is hosted within Microsoft's platform. That is not necessarily the nearest exit point to you. With maps, that changes, and using maps, Microsoft keeps the traffic on the Microsoft network for as long as possible, and basically brings it to the closest location to you, not necessarily the closest location to the individual hosting location within Microsoft network. So the traffic stays longer on the very controlled environment that's Microsoft's network, and then exits Microsoft network only on the location closest to you or your customer. In this case, that would be wherever you have the maps service from links or a different partner. So you have less risk of being impacted by other things happening on the internet. It stays longer on the Microsoft network, and then over a very controlled environment through our fabric and then directly to you. That's a main difference that you have when using maps. I'm going to talk about two main use cases. The primary use case, the one I'm starting with, is probably the way the most used use case, the most popular one. We have quite a lot of members, or customers of our members using it for this use case, and it is what we would call enterprise networks. So not service providers, but really enterprise smaller networks. And one of the reasons for that is there is another main difference between maps and regular peering across an exchange or private peering with Microsoft. And which is really important for enterprise networks, smaller networks, since not every network, for those of you who are in our industry, in the peering world, everybody knows if you want to announce IPv4 blocks, really the smallest prefix, the smallest subnet that you can reliably announce and that you can be sure that will get accepted by your peers, by other networks, is really a /24, so 256 IP addresses. Not every network, especially if we're talking about enterprise, small, medium networks, they might not have a public-facing /24. They might only have a /29, /25. Especially nowadays when IPv4 addresses are becoming rarer, to a certain degree more expensive, even though the prices seem to have stabilized a little bit. But normally, enterprise networks don't need a large public-facing block, which kind of excludes you from being able to peer through the normal methods with any network, especially across an IXP public peering. Since simply, if you only have a /25, if you only have a /29, your prefix won't be accepted by your peers. Maps changes that. Maps allows you to have that direct peering with Microsoft with 8075. And your prefix can be as small as a /30, really. With a number of customers of our members who are using maps with only a /29. In some cases, it's even done where our member offers it as a managed service, so they might just give them a small IP block of their own, allocated, delegated to their customer, and use it for this purpose. You still need an AS number, but luckily getting an AS number is much easier and not normally not a limitation. So that's an important factor, which makes it really much easier to directly use this service for smaller networks, not service provider networks, but enterprise style networks. The second important difference between using maps to peer with Microsoft or directly peering with Microsoft, and that applies for enterprise networks and for service provider, that applies for everybody. There are no peering policy requirements. So what am I talking about here? Well, why peering policy? And doesn't everybody have the same peering policy? Not at all. Every network has slightly different peering policy. Normally, smaller networks have what we call an open peering policy, so they're not really any requirement. They're happy to peer with any other network that wants to. Some networks obviously have a closed peering policy since their business, especially service providers, larger service providers will have a closed peering policy since one of their core businesses is selling transit. So they would only peer with people, let's call it at the same layer. I don't want to go into tier 1, tier 2. We're a little bit beyond that by now, but they will only peer with similar sized networks, but wouldn't peer with any smaller networks. And then there is a large group of networks in the middle, which kind of have a selective peering policy, meaning really they're happy to peer with anybody as long as certain requirements are fulfilled. And Microsoft is no different there. Microsoft has a fairly open peering policy, is happy to peer with pretty much everybody, but they have defined a number of requirements at different levels just to help their internal processes and keep certain standards. And they can get in the way, especially if you are a smaller network. Their requirements can be a little bit tricky. In addition to the process, the way it works, I don't want to get myself into trouble, but the way it works, you apply for peering through the Azure portal. We all love the Azure portal when it works. But everything goes through there. It's a fairly nicely automated process, which can be a good thing, but can also be a bad thing. If the machine says no, well, the machine says no. So what are the current requirements that Microsoft has if you want to apply for peering? Again, I said this doesn't apply if you use maps, one of the main benefits. So they're telling you need to have a fully redundant network, which you would hope that you have that, and have sufficient capacity to exchange traffic. Again, not really an issue. You need to have a public ASN, not an issue. Microsoft doesn't support MD5. Well, not can be an issue if you have internal policies which require you, but it's what it is. Again, maps can work around that. And as I mentioned before, you need to have at least one publicly routable /24 prefix, which is one of the issues if you are a smaller network. They also have requirements for traffic, and these are recent ones that I downloaded, and they're interesting to say the least. They have a very low minimum traffic, so you just need to have 500 meg. But then they also have a relatively low maximum traffic. So this is for peering over an exchange platform. So you need to have at least 500 meg, but it needs to be less than 2 gig. And obviously, there's nobody who's standing there with a piece of paper. Oh, you had 2 gig, but it's a relatively small one. If it's more than 2 gig, they actually prefer if you move to direct peering, private peering, so not across an exchange. but across direct PNIs between you and your networks. And at that same level is also the minimum. If you want to do private peering, you need to have a minimum requirement. Now, the issue is the next page. Well, if you want to do, well, let's first go back to the exchange peering again. Again, for smaller networks could be an issue. So you're expected to have at least 10 gig connection to the exchange if you want peering over an exchange. And same requirement as before, you're expected to upgrade your ports once utilization hits 50%. Probably less of an issue than that you need to have a minimum of 10 gig connected to the exchange. For direct peering, PNI, and again, for smaller networks, even though the minimum requirement is only 2 gig, Microsoft will only do PNIs at 100 gig. And they will only do PNIs with service providers or network service provider, managed service providers, and so on, not with direct enterprise customers. Again, same requirement. You're expected to upgrade once you hit 50%. And you need to have diverse connections. So even for a relatively small network, actually the minimum requirement if you want to do PNI is 200 gig ports, which can be a lot for smaller networks. And yeah, this is just you need sessions across both and fully redundant there. So that brings me back to our enterprise use case. So we said the /24 requirement is not there. You can have a much smaller prefix and still be happy. And none of these requirements that I spent the last 5 to 10 minutes over, none of these apply. You can get maps and as a consequence get direct peering with 8075 immediately. There's no approval process. You don't have to wait for somebody at Microsoft to approve your peering request. It all happens automatically. You order it from us through our portal, and I come back a little bit at the end on the only requirements at our end. So the second use case is, of course, service providers. A lot of our members are service providers. The use case, there's clearly the use case for yourself. If you're a smaller network, again, you might not want to deal with Microsoft's policy requirements. You can just use maps, turn it up at any point in time, upgrade your bandwidth, downgrade your bandwidth as you need it at any point in time. And of course, and we see that quite a lot, it's a service that's perfect if you're a service provider, especially those who offer managed services to some of their customers. It is a very easy to resell service to your customers, and we have quite a few of those where our members resell it. Our members or connections partners resell it to their customers. So those are the main use cases. Clearly, primarily, it's how it started. It's all of the enterprise style networks, but anybody who wants that direct peering and for whatever reason either doesn't qualify for regular peering with 8075 or simply wants it simply if you don't want to, you don't even need to log into the Azure portal once if you don't want to. So how is it done at Lynx? Where do we offer it? How can you get it? Where can you get it? We offer it wherever we can get direct connections to Microsoft in the local metro area. So we don't long line any of this service. But if we offer it on a peering LAN, it means from that fabric, we have direct NNIs, direct interconnections with Microsoft dedicated to the map service. They will always be fully resilient in 2 different locations, and we adjust the bandwidth on demand upgrade as needed. So currently, we started offering it a couple of years ago in London on LAN 1. We now also have it in Manchester, in Northern Virginia, and the latest one that we added is in Nairobi. And again, in all of these locations, Microsoft is also connected on the public peering LAN 8075. It's there. This is not an exclusive service. It is there as an alternative to that direct peering and solves problems in certain scenarios. The way this is delivered, and if you want more details in previous webinars over the years, I've gone into more details. Basically, the way we implement this, we have a dedicated closed user group, a dedicated layer 2 instance on our fabric that is only used for maps. That layer 2 instance has direct connections to Microsoft. We operate two dedicated route servers in each of those closed user groups. They're located in two different sites on our side, so it's fully resilient end to end. And if you order the service, you basically get connected into that closed user group. You establish your peering with the route servers. The route server AS will be transparent, so you get your direct peering with Microsoft. So there's no additional ASN in the pass. It's really your ASN and an 8075. The current bandwidth options that you have, they start as low as 50 meg and go up to 10 gig. If you need higher bandwidth, talk to us. We can certainly make that happen in some of the locations. But if those are your traffic levels, unless it is for temporary, for a certain project, a certain event, but otherwise, probably our recommendation would be probably get your direct PNIs with Microsoft if your bandwidth is on a regular basis higher than this. You can get the service either you can use dedicated links ports to connect it to you, or it can just be an additional VLAN if you're already using links peering service or other link services. You can just get the map service as an additional VLAN on your existing ports. And as I mentioned before, Maps is also available through our connections partners. Quite a few of them have been quite happy to deliver it and have been quite successful with that. And it is a simple way to get, especially from an enterprise segment, to get that connection to Microsoft. And that's really all we have in half an hour. Little bit of a quick view of what Maps is, where we see the use cases. We have seen a lot of success, a lot of customers using it, a lot of members using it. And yes, we have leave the last couple of minutes if there are any questions regarding any of what I've walked you through.
So we don't have any questions yet, but remember, use the Q&A function if you do. But if you don't, thank you, Mike, and thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this session. Remember, if you have any other webinar topic suggestions, please get in contact with us and we can look into it for you. Keep an eye out on our events page on our website to find out where we are in the world and what free sessions we have coming up next to register for. For Links members, next month we have our Peering Health Check webinar, perfect for the network engineers among us. If this isn't for you, but could be for a colleague, please share the link with them. You never know what they might learn. I'll add it to the chat or you can find it on our website. But thank you very much for attending our webinar and we hope to see you again soon.